Hi everyone, so I'm going to continue with this watercolour painting of a street in Cardiff in Wales. If you remember from, I think it was a couple of days ago, the last stream I added these washes of colour using watercolour on top of a watercolour marker drawing. And on the whole, I'm happy with how things have gone. Now, when I ended the last stream, the paint was still wet and I said I was going to let it dry. And so that often produces interesting results. Now, in traditional watercolour, you avoid what we call cauliflowers, like this patterning here, at all costs. But I don't particularly mind in my work. I kind of like cauliflowers. I think they kind of introduce unique effects. And in addition, I can often make them into a bit of a feature. So, for example, the couple of cauliflowers I've got on this lady's shirt, I may well turn into part of the pattern on her shirt at some point. This one here I might turn into a bit of a plant in a kind of planter up high. The patterning here, this guy's painting the wall, and this is green, and we could imagine this is the paint degrading here. And in fact, in the reference photo, the guy was actually painting white on top of the green colour. So I'm going to come back to that point in a moment. But on the whole, I'm happy with this because I like the liveliness and the looseness of this right-hand side of the painting. And I mentioned previously that I wanted to include this chap painting, but I want him to be almost a hidden feature, if you like, so that people don't notice him immediately. So my plan is to work up this side of the painting more than the left side, and then leave this left-hand edge, almost completely unresolved, or more or less as it is, except for a couple of things I'm going to add in a bit. And then the lighting will be more dramatic on this side, and then we'll go from there. I am debating how far to take this. I really like the loose feel of this, and I want to include some darks in here, but at the same time I don't want to lose all of this lightness of touch that I've got. I'm really liking the way this is working at the moment. So anyway, let's crack on. Enough chit chat. So I'm going to use a flat and rather neat, newish synthetic brush. So there's not much fraying going on here because I want clean edges for what I'm about to do. And my plan for this chap on the left is I'm going to grab probably a leaf green from the watercolour kit that I've been using throughout, or at least I used it last time, didn't I? So this is going to represent the paint that he's covering up. So I'm actually going to mix that in with a bit of bottle green I've got there, so it's a little bit off, not quite so vibrant. So I want this to look like he's painting the wall white. So what I'm going to do is paint in the bits that he hasn't done yet. So in order to do that, we're going to sweep a line down there, try and fill this region in with a fairly neat wash. It doesn't have to be perfect, but now we can imagine that sweep of the roller, he's taking up the wall, it's gone something like that. And I'm going to actually bring in that line there. So maybe he had a first chew at it and then corrected his brush stroke or his roller stroke. And I might add a line or two at some point, but for now I think that's all I'm going to do there. So maybe he's coated this part of the wall in white paint already, and then he's decided to go a bit wild, maybe to loosen his arms up there. Now, as mentioned, I don't want people to notice him too quickly. So in the reference photo, there's kind of a red barrier that he's got here to stop people, bumping into him. So I'm going to pop that in. Let's grab bit of cad red. Well, that looks like cad orange actually, doesn't it? Let's get a bit of red. Not that it matters too much. We'll pick up some of that alizarin I've got dried on the lid there as well. And so, as mentioned, I've got brighter colours over here. I'm going to introduce stronger light. But what I want to do is, by putting a bit more of this red, that'll tie in with some of the reds I've got going on here. By putting some of these in now, my hope is that somebody looking at the painting afresh is going to see the people on the right. They're going to see the red canopies, this red barrier that I'm putting in here. And they're not going to notice that chap painting away immediately. So I'm hoping to create sort of little, oh, there's a guy there moment. Simply because I quite like that when that happens to me when I'm looking at somebody else's work. So there's the beginnings of that barrier. Now, I quite like that red, but we'll perhaps go back a bit more towards the orange. We'll perhaps brighten up. Those canopies there. Although the colour's not right, we'll start to introduce a couple of supports for those. And now that I've got this colour on my brush, I'm starting to think, well, where can I pop some of that in, which isn't going to be too out of place. So I've got red, the guy's shorts there. We could perhaps make this lady's trousers red. I'm not sure. I suppose we could, couldn't we? Okay, so having done that, just cleaning up my palette a little bit here. And what I want to do now is add a few cast shadows on the ground that are being cast by, well, all of these people actually. So what we'll do is we'll grab some of the ultramarine blue. If I can get that activated. I did spray my palette with a bit of water before I started streaming. Get a bit of raw umber in there. A bit more of the blue. That's probably pretty good. So it's a fairly sunny day in the reference, and the sun is fairly high. I don't need to go too dark with these shadows. I just want to anchor these people to the ground a little bit. Could perhaps do with being a touch darker though. Bit of neutral tint in there. Bit of ocean blue. That's probably enough of that for the moment, but what I'll do is I will just pop in a little bit of a cast shadow for that chap as well. So while I've got those darker and rather cooler hues on my brush, just picked up a bit more of the neutral tint. Actually, that might be Payne's Grey, actually. Let's get a bit of neutral tint in there. That's definitely neutral tint. Get a little bit of the ocean blue. And let's put in some of these darks without going too wild. So the sign here has the words "The Bell" on it, because that's the pub there on the right hand side of the street, and the writing's in white, so I do want to include a fairly dark background there. Put another line in there. And then perhaps we'll put a bit of shadow in there. And if I avoid most of the paint I've put down so far that'll hopefully make some of those colours pop a little more. Although, as I said, I am quite happy with what I've got there so far, so I don't want to over-egg the pudding. But I'll just suggest a bit of structure going on there. And then up here, we can put in some darker regions for the beginnings of windows. I could do with my flat brush actually, so I'm going to switch over to that just to get a couple of bit of dry brush and some slightly sharper edges. Again, as I mentioned before, I'm not interested in copying the architecture exactly, but we can, you know, I can hint at certain features within the architecture to suggest the general situation. Okay, I'm fairly happy with that so far. And while I've got that on my brush, I think I'm actually going to just darken some of these cast shadows in the foreground a little bit. And leave the others as they are. Okay, so next up, let's deal with the people's hair. So let's have a pop of bright yellow on this lady's hair. We'll perhaps do the same on the other one for the moment. And then grabbing a touch of yellow ochre and putting that into the mix. I can get it to work. Probably do for the moment. Just add a bit of a mid-tone to that there and there. And then we'll grab some of the burnt sienna and mix that in. Just darken the hair for the lady on the right. I'll probably leave the one on the left for the moment. So got that tone on my brush and just diluting that. Got that colour on my brush, I should say. Just diluting that a bit. And let's see if that works for... That works fairly well for a skin tone. Perhaps there's a bit of skin showing through there. This guy's wearing shorts. These people will need some hair at some point, but for now I'll just paint them as if they don't have any. And then I'm going to come in and grab, again, I can never remember all of these colours, but I think that's either magenta or permanent rose. We'll mix in a little bit of the alizarin crimson with that and put a pop of that on that lady's bag. Grab a touch of burnt umber and then mix some of that in with some of the blue I had before to just change the colour of the hair as we work our way across. This person on the red has got really quite bright red hair now in my depiction. Then I've just realised I'm going back to that flesh tone colour. I'm just going to sort of hint at a hand there. So, you know, as I've mentioned quite a few times now, I'm not looking to depict all of these things exactly, quite the opposite. So we could put a bit of a flesh colour there for that person. And now at the moment, of course, these two people don't even have feet, so I need to address that. But I'm trying to strike a balance between describing things and just accepting what the paint has given me. So, for example, you know, there are lots of inaccuracies and things going on here, but I like the fact some of the sketch is showing through. Although I've added colour to this woman on the right, you know, her legs aren't completely painted, she's not completely painted, but to me it still says those two are walking along. And just that little detail there with a bit of colour on the face tells me there's a guy there as well in the background. So, you know, that's all I need for the moment. Okay, so next then we will just trying to zoom in on my painting, on my reference photo. We'll hint at some stuff a little bit more off in the distance. There are some kind of planters, and I've got this bit of a wash here. So I'm just mixing in some of the burnt umber, some of that flesh tone, and some of the magenta I had, just to create a bit of a neutral colour. And we'll just suggest those without worrying about having to paint every single thing that's there. And then off in the background, perhaps another canopy down a bit lower. And I'll use that same colour to put in a few architectural details off in the far distance. Now for this building on the end, there's quite a distinctive arched window there on the end. There's some kind of detail cutting across there, which then disappears down that side. There's a clock face there, which I've just depicted. I haven't really even bothered to do a circle there, as you can see, but that'll be okay for my purposes. Sorry, I went a bit quiet there, just having a bit of a think. I think for now I'm going to leave things to dry completely again and see where to go, because I'm starting to hesitate, and so that kind of tells me, all right, you need to stop and have a think about, do you need to just leave this as is, and what are the bits I need to resolve now to bring this to a finish. I definitely want to put some white in here with the bell or the word bell on there. I may put a few details. I need to give these people a little bit of an indication of some feet, I think. But I'm going to probably leave it there, have another think, let everything dry. Oh, I do need to put just the end of his roller on there, but I'm quite happy with the way that he sort of disappears into the white of the wall. I like that. So yes, so for about 4 times now I've said I think I'm going to leave it there, and I think I will. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll be back with another stream soon. It might be this one, it might be the sheep and lamb paintings I've got on the go, or it might be something different. Just depends what takes my fancy. Anyway, thank you very much for